Autumn's coming. Now, that'll be to our benefit, a personification of autumn, which portrays autumn in what position? Back in old Prufrock, what's Autumn doing? First of all, it says that he's asleep. I say he. I don't think we get a pronoun. It says, in the afternoon, the evening sleeps. Note, sleeps, first of all, so peacefully. Does evening, in fact, sleep at all? Human beings sleep. And when we have human attributes attributed to non-human entities, that has a name. That's called pathetic fallacy. We were going to see a good deal of that in the poetry that we read. Pathetic fallacy is when you attribute to non-human things human characteristics. Now, evening not being a being at all, it can't get tired, and therefore it can't go to sleep. But he talks of evening as if it were human. So we keep going. In the afternoon, the evening sleeps so peacefully, smoothed by long fingers. Again, evening not having a body can't really be smoothed, and yet there it is. Asleep, again, that's human. Tired, and that's human. Or it malingers, and that's human. And now this next line is the one I am really pointing at. What's the key word there? Stretched. So you want to underline stretched. That evening has taken up a position with you and I upon the floor. In the mind of the poet, or in the mind of the reader, we have this very definite image of evening sleeping. Now, evening can't sleep, and evening can't stretch, and evening can't get tired. So what we're doing then is talking about nature as if it were human. And another way to talk about that is to call it personification. See, personification is giving something that is abstract a body. That's the idea behind it. So you see, evening is really a very abstract idea. Where does evening stop and start? Well, evening's a moving thing. And if you want to personify it, you do that with the express purpose of trying to capture it, to hold it still, to take a picture of it. And so that's the purpose of the personification here. This is very important in the poem because it's the only time in Prufrock that we get something definite that we can understand. This is a very slight personification. While we look at this poem, there are several things we have to do simultaneously. The first thing begins in the first line. We have to know what the poem is about. Now, usually poems will tell you. Who's the poet talking to in the first opening lines? Season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun. Who's he talking to? To Autumn. As if, you see, you could call Autumn up, write Autumn a letter, and Autumn would understand. Do we today think that we can address nature? I should think that we do sometimes. How do we do it? Continue. Yeah, well, sure. We talk to plants. Do we pray for rain? That would be a kind of talking to nature. When we come up in the morning, when you get to winter, you're going to get a warm morning, you're going to come out of your room, you're going to say, "Ah, sun, embrace me." We don't do that very much. Some people might. People from a rural background with agricultural interests might do a little bit of that. City people generally are almost totally cut off from the womb that gave them birth. And that womb is nature. Yeah, it's nature. Take nature away, you take human beings away. Nature is not a part of humanity. Humanity is a part of nature. Here in the poem we see a kind of an archaic instance of this agricultural past that all peoples of the earth have shared ever since the whole thing began, and this kind of experience of nature stopped about when? People stopped feeling a part of nature about when? Pretty recently. About when?
When they strapped on and became city.
I was just wondering what it is for us. If you said, "I'm a part of nature," you'd have to be very sure that really you were kind of a being that used to live way back with, well, not what we might call dinosaurs, if we exaggerate. People today aren't a part of nature. What are they a part of? That's the other end of the course that we want to examine. The 20th century tries to show us what we are part of, because we're not any longer a part of nature as was understood by our rural, mostly, and agricultural forebears. But here the poem is going back to that. Maybe this is the last and maybe the greatest expression of that kind of feeling. So he says, he's talking to autumn, as if it were right there beside him. He says, season of mists and mellow fruitfulness. Why does he call autumn a friend of the sun?
Because it turns leaves, various colors and forms.
How does that make autumn a friend of the sun? You're headed in the right direction.
Okay, because autumn to be autumn.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. Autumn is the fruition of the yearly cycle of the sun. In Texas, you're going to miss part of that, you see, because our seasons are a little bit skewed. Keats is writing in England. If you're from someplace in the north, you're in good shape to understand this, because when do apples ripen? In the autumn. When do cherries ripen? In the autumn. But when do peaches ripen? In late summer. So it doesn't go for all fruit, but a great majority of things are harvested. That's the idea, the harvest time, and that's in the autumn.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I didn't get one word.
Make it up and add one. Any word will do. That's what you're going to do on your papers anyway. Let's get used to doing it now. Let's look at the third line of the poem. And you see there's a conspiracy going on here? Okay. What's the conspiracy, Anther? Who's conspiring with who?
The sun.
Well, what's the conspiracy about? How to load and bless. How to load and bless. It's like your mother and father have conspiracies. When you get to be 18, 21, 12, baptism, any of the moments of life, what do they conspire to do for you? Same thing, right? How to load and bless you. How to bless you. So maybe they'll give you a ring, or maybe they'll give you a coat, or they want to give you something. And so you see, that's what autumn and the sun are doing. They're conspiring how to bless those apples to make them as big and as fat and as red as they can be, Lamont.
Okay, well, I was just about to say the sun.
Correct. Sorry, I beat you to it. Conspiring with him. Who's him?
The sun.
The sun. Note that the sun is used in the third person pronoun. We would say what? Conspiring with, not him, but it. We'd say it. Conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit. Now, first of all, the vines that round the thatch eaves run. Underline fruit. Underline vines. Next line, underline apples. And then skip 2 lines down, underline gourd, underline hazel shells, underline kernel. And you see the idea here is that the poem To Autumn is a celebration of the harvest. It's a celebration of ripeness. You know what Beth said? Ripeness is all. Is that Lear? Ripeness is all. Are you ripe? Anybody in here ripe? No. Why? What are you? In terms of this pathetic fallacy, in terms of this personification, you're not ripe, you're what? You're green. Sure, you're green. You see that. And then green things grow and branch and bud and flower. And then what? Their fruit then comes out. And the fruit begins to ripen on the tree. And then they're ripe. So you see, this question of natural processes can be very easily attributed to human beings as well as to the natural tree or the vine or the gourd. You see, he's celebrating it. This is a time of lushness. If you go out into the fields and you take your bags with you and you come back and the bags, they burden you down. There's so much fruit. We all know that when the harvest is in motion, that we must work long and late hours, because if we leave the fruit on the tree, what will happen? It'll rot, it'll spoil, yeah. We don't even want it to fall on the ground, see, because it'll spoil. There are the dangers to the harvest. The only thing that can keep you from a good harvest, if nature is being bounteous that year, is your own failure to pick the fruit. So if it's out there, then that's the time to go and get it. And that's the sense here with the bees. you see. He goes from fruit, or from botanical considerations, to bees. What we call bees animals? No, I guess insects. Yeah, insects. Of course, they were involved in pollinating the fruit anyway, right? You know that there are bee owners who truck their bees all over the Southwest. Big tractor-trailer loads of hundreds and hundreds of beehives. And they're paid by farmers to bring those beehives into a certain section of the country to help pollinate the crops. And then after all the pollination is done, they pack up their beehives and they go someplace else for the next crop. This is really a very big business. But you see what he says about the bees. To swell the gourd and plump the hazel shells with a sweet kernel will set budding more and still more later flowers for the bees. Now, this is business of early flowers and late flowers. What's the first flower to bloom in the spring in Texas? Because the bees have been all winter without anything. They're living off their honey. But what's the first flower they can feed on in Texas? Not bad. Agarita. Agarita is just about the earliest thing to bloom. Coming on about 2 weeks before the red bud and almost 3 or 4 weeks before the bluebonnet. But what's the last flower to bloom in Texas? This is a chance you can watch and see. What's the last flower? There's a little orange or a little yellow sunflower with a black center, helianthus, not real big. And that's going to be blooming. It doesn't have buds yet, coming. The asters have buds on them, and they're coming. And, of course, we all know about the chrysanthemums, right? And they're coming. Well, can't answer my own question. Maybe it's a helianthus. It's questionable. Anyway, by November 15th, what are we going to be talking about? Flowers? No. We're talking about dry stalks. We're talking about dead leaves. Now, you see, the bees are interested in these later flowers. Walk out around the neighborhood and take a look at some of the bushes and see the kind of bees there are. There's more than one kind of bee. And still more later flowers for the bees until they, who are they? The bees, until they think warm days will never cease. For summer has o'erbrimmed their clammy cells. At what period of summer do you think summer o'erbrims, blows the bees right out of the hive? There's so much out there to get. About what time of summer is that? When they o'erbrim, there's so much honey. When is it? Oh no, that's early summer. Summer's just barely got started. No, September. This is it. As a matter of fact, right now. This is about the luscious time. This is when summer o'erbrims. It's a good thing the heat broke, isn't it? Who could stand it any longer? But now the heat's gone. So we had our o'erbrimming, I suppose, on Friday. And then that was it. But do you see the sense here that he's presenting something to you that really you know nothing about anymore? You don't know about bees, you don't know about flowers, you don't know about gourds, you don't know about pumpkins, you don't know about fruit trees. What do you know? Something else. That's why I say that it's very important to understand Prufrock, because what we do know when we grow up in the 1980s is something that people never understood before, and we don't understand now, but it's new, and we might understand. But you see, we've lost all this, except when we go to the Safeway. Right? But you know, the fruit in the Safeway is not like this kind of fruit. The fruit in the Safeway is hardly worth eating. Vine-ripened tomatoes, is that what they have in the Safeway? No. They pick their tomatoes green, and they ripen them with chemicals. And that's why they don't taste like much. Take the mushrooms in the Safeway. Well, they taste like wallboard. Good, edible mushrooms that grow in the woods are an entirely different proposition. This is a time of existence that has passed the United States by. And today, there isn't any farming done on a small scale worth talking about. Today, farming's done by agribusiness and monocropping. You're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of one crop. We are very, very quickly losing contact with that which gave us our birth and our consciousness. So all the more important that we develop a love and an affinity for this poem, because this is the best expression of this subject that was ever made. John Keats died at the age of 23. And he'd already written these odes that we're going to look at. It's believed that had he lived, he would have been the only English poet who had a chance to rival Shakespeare. You know, Shakespeare is unrivaled. Nobody's close to Shakespeare. Not even Milton. But Keats had a chance. The reason they say that is because Keats has such a terrific sense of detail. He can really see what's happening when he looks. Most of us look at the world and we see something very general. But Keats has seen very, very specific details. And I think we get a sense of that in the first stanza. This whole poem is about being full. Now, if we can see autumn being addressed in the first stanza, and if we can see autumn being celebrated, and writing down, are you addressed and celebrated for the first stanza? In the second stanza, let's see how he gets closer to autumn and how he puts into practice this personification. And you keep in mind what we saw back in Prufrock there. In English, I suppose we all know, since we read the King James Version, how many read the King James Version of the Bible still? Well, good. No, just doing that, just having that familiarity puts you one or two steps ahead of people who do not know it. But you know that in the King James Version we have the thee and we have the thy. And that's the archaic formal address in English. In Spanish you still have that. You have usted. But in English now we no longer have the thee and the thy. We just got you. But you see, he goes back. It's archaic even in Keats' time, but he goes back and picks up that old form of address, and he calls it thee, calls autumn thee. Who hath not seen thee? Underline thee. Oft amid thy store. And I think now in line 3 we have a thee, in line 4 we have a thy, and in line, that'd be, 3 of the second stanza. Or in line 17 we have another thy, and in line 19 we have a thy, and in the last line we have a thou. He's going out of his way here to treat autumn as if it were a person. And he uses this archaic language in order, I guess, to somehow set the subject apart from the ordinary context of daily conversation. Look what he invites, or look what he sees autumn doing, and that's why we're really examining this second stanza in context of Prufrock. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? What kind of store does autumn keep? What would you call it? Well, a college keeps a bookstore. What kind of store does autumn keep? Fruit stand. Yeah, fruit stand. Fred's Fruits, or Autumn's Fruits. Autumn's Fruits and Vegetables. Big, good thing. Somebody could maybe make a buck. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Now, somebody's looking for autumn. Where do they look? Sometimes whoever seeks thee abroad may find thee, underline it. Autumn can't. Does autumn have a, what do you call it? What do you call it? A rump. We have lots of terms for it, whatever we call it. But anyway, autumn doesn't have one, and yet he's treating autumn as if it did. Sometimes whoever seeks thee abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor. Thy hair, does autumn have hair? No. Thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind. So do you see that there's a place called a granary in the poem? Underline granary. Here's what a granary is. It's a barn. What do you do in the granary? You store the grain. That's how you do it. I went over this last time. I better do it again. And we can call 2312 a little bit of agriculture as well, because there are all these agricultural terms we have to come to terms with. But you see the word winnowing wind. The wind blows through sitting autumn in a winnowing fashion, winnowing through the wind. I dare say, if we were to winnow our own hair, what would we find? Winnowing is getting something out of it. Well, we won't do it. You see, here's how they used to winnow the grain. When they cut the grain, this is before combines and before tractors, because you know the earth is very old in terms of human habitation. But all these machines are very, very new, and nobody knows what they're doing to us yet. But the way they used to winnow it was to first of all cut the grain, and then to take it and put it on the threshing floor. And then they would beat on it with big mallets or handles of some kind in order to pop the seed kernels out of the heads of the grain. Then they would put it in bushel baskets and take it up on the second floor of the granary on the barn. And then they'd wait for a good wind to come. And then all they had to do was to shovel it out into the wind. And what happened was that the grain, or the seeds, being heavy, would fall pretty much straight down. But the chaff, or the part you don't want to eat, would be blown by the wind off hereaways, you see. And that's called winnowing, separating wheat from chaff. We know at the Last Judgment there's going to be a kind of a winnowing, but a winnowing of whom?
Just and unjust.
I heard all the ways I want to hear. Just and the unjust, righteous and the unrighteous. Those go on my right hand and those go on my left. But you see here, the hair of autumn is being winnowed. And that's a terrific compression of agricultural knowledge. Because one, autumn doesn't have hair. And two, there is no grain in autumn's hair. Unless you look at this as being the picture of autumn. So autumn is buried in the ground, most of it is, but its hair sticks up. And the hair of autumn is all that wheat, you see. And the wind blows through the wheat and winnows the hair. There's a tremendous amount of interesting detail there that he's got by compression. One, where can you find autumn? Sitting where? Sitting on the granary floor. Okay, so put a 1 there. Line 15, let's look at another place. He says, or on a half-reaped furrow sounds asleep. Half-reaped, what's reaping? Reaping is when you take a scythe and you cut the wheat. But what happens to reapers? Those who operate the scythes, what happens to them? Hot day, they get tired. What do you do in the afternoon? Little siesta. So he's half done with his harvest, and he's sitting down on the furrow. The furrow is where the plow has gone through the ground and pushed the dirt up on both sides, almost like a little trench. So he's half done, and he sits down there, or on a half-reaped furrow, sound asleep. And then he's sleeping. Why is he sleeping? Next line. Drowse with what? Fume of poppies. That's probably one of the few things in the poem that people today might understand. How do you get drowsy with poppies? What's it called? Poppies. Drugs. Yeah, that's right. In fact, it is heroin, but we don't use heroin, but today everybody has another kind of poppy. Drowsy. Yeah. Well, don't feel guilty. I don't care. I'm interested in teaching the poem. 2 ways you can find autumn. First of all, he'd be sitting. And second of all, he'd be sleeping. And that's very like what Eliot had too, isn't it, with his picture of evening. Now, continuing. While thy hook spares the next swath and all its twined flowers. You see, that hook spares the next swath because he's asleep. As soon as he gets up, what's going to happen to the next swath? Cut it right off. And all its twined flowers. And now look, a third place you can find autumn. Next line. And sometimes like a gleaner. Do you know what a gleaner is? Who knows the story of Ruth? What's a gleaner? Isn't this great? That's right. After the harvest, there's always going to be some left. There's going to be apples on the ground. There's going to be wheat in the field. Whatever it is that you're growing. There's going to be potatoes left in the ground if you're talking potatoes. But potatoes are spring. In any case, the gleaner comes along and cleans the field. And sometimes like a gleaner, thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook or by a cedar press. Let's read it again. Sometimes like a gleaner, thou dost keep steady thy laden head. How does his head get laden? Laden with what? What is this? Am I supposed to tell the answers? Is that what you're waiting for? For me to enlighten you? Well, no, you're not really, because as soon as I tell you, you're going to forget. Why is his head laden? Valerie, you want to try it? What? He's tired. Sure, he's tired. That's right. It's simple. It's simple enough. there's a heuristic device in teaching, or I should put it simply, there's a device in teaching which can ensure that the student will remember what you say. And that is simply ask the student to guess. If they guess right, they'll never forget. If they guess wrong, it doesn't matter. But if you tell them the answer, what's surely going to happen? Instant extinction. What did he say? We want to work out of this mode that I'm going to feed you. You're going to feed yourselves. And I'm going to presumably organize a discussion. And sometimes like a gleaner thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook. What's that mean? How do you keep your laden head steady across a brook? What's the picture? That's not bad. As if he were laying down on the water. It doesn't immediately make sense to me. Sometimes like a gleaner thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook. Well, let's go on. If you don't understand, go on. Yes? Yeah, but what's the business about keeping steady his head across? Doesn't seem to me to be anything I understand.
More or less trying to keep them straight as you get across the road.
Could be. Could be. As long as I don't know, anything might be. Presumably there's an answer to this somewhere. Now, where would you go to find the answer to this problem? Maybe one of them knows. So then you have to go read all your critics. And that's worth it because you're looking for something. But you've already got your own view of the poem in mind. It's different then. And sometimes like a gleaner thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by a cider press with patient look thou watchest the last oozings hours by hours. Where are the songs of spring? Well, what's the answer? Gone. Aye, where are they? Think not of them. Who's he asking that of? Where are the songs of spring? Who's he talking to? No, he's not talking to autumn. It's a rhetorical question. Something addressed to the universe. Where's all the bright company gone? Where? Nobody knows. They've gone. Where are the songs of spring? Aye, where are they? Now listen. I say, listen. What are you going to hear when you listen? Well, listen, you'll hear. Where are the songs of spring? Aye, where are they? Think not of them. Thou hast thy music too. Who? Who is music? While barred clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue. Here it comes. Then in a wailful choir, underline choir, the small gnats mourn, underline mourn, among the river sallows. What are river sallows? River sallows?
Like river banks.
Yeah, like river banks. Yeah, exactly. Where are you going to find your most gnats? Down by the river. Then in a wailful choir the small gnats mourn among the river sallows, borne aloft or sinking as the light wind lives or dies, and full-grown lambs, underline bleat, and full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne. Ba! Ba! Full-grown lambs? Who knows anything about sheep? Besides me. I used to live on a sheep ranch. In the springtime, in March, in Texas, in about middle March, little baby lambs. Lots of them. And they grow all summer long. And now when the little baby lambs are so cute, you take them in the house, and you pet them, and you play with them, and they're so nice. But what's a little baby lamb grow up into being? A loud, bossy, full-grown lamb with a tail. So these are not critters that are delicate. Full-grown lambs are very much out and around and busy running up and down and causing as much trouble as they can, getting dirty and everything. And they loud bleat. Now they really do loud bleat. Then in a wailful choir the small gnats mourn among the river sallows, borne aloft or sinking as the light wind lives or dies, and full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne. 3. Hedge crickets sing, underline that. Hedge crickets sing. 4. And now with treble soft the redbreast whistles, underline treble, underline redbreast. What's a redbreast? What kind of bird? Is it a robin? What else could it be? Could be a cardinal. Since we're talking England, I don't know. I don't think it's a robin. But I don't think it's a cardinal either. But here it would surely be a cardinal. We only get robins here in the middle of winter, passing through. But in any case, we see here the redbreast whistles with treble soft. The redbreast whistles from a garden croft. What's a croft? All you crofters. It's another sort of one of these archaic terms that they ought to do something about if people are going to appreciate literature in the 21st century. A croft. Well, in the Scottish Highlands, they call them crofters. A crofter can be somebody who grows truck garden vegetables to sell. It could be somebody who makes leather goods. It could be somebody that hollows out pipes for sale. They're crofters. You might say craft in our sense of it. And now with treble soft, the redbreast whistles from a garden croft. And 5, gathering swallows twitter in the skies. I want you to see that what we're talking about in this poem is absolutely filled with music and sound. I think that it's obvious enough to us at the end here that if the gnats mourn, how does that sound? Louder. Okay. The lambs bleat. Give me a bleat. No. Loudly. I have to teach another class. Loudly. Ba! 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 Hedge crickets sing. How does that go? Hedge crickets. It's good. It's good. Redbreast whistles. Give me that. And swallows twitter. Let me hear it. Twitter. Twitter. Who's doing that? That's good. Who's doing that? Lamont? Okay, Lamont, Lewis, come on, quick. Hurry up. Get up here, quick. Come on, the gentleman in the blue shirt, get up here. I need 2 more. 2 more people who can do this. I need a lamb. Who can do a lamb? Come on. Haven't got all day. Larry, come on, Larry. Now, I need 1 more. Okay, come over here. Come here. We only got a minute. I don't want to keep these people late. Now, y'all please be quiet. Take a breath. Swallows Twitter. Let's hear your horn. Let's hear your Twitter. Now, I want you to all come in on your cue. So the first person is going to be the man. Second person is the lamb. Third person is the fish. Fourth person is the rest, and the last person is the square. But when you come in, I want you to keep on going. Now, let's do it. Just keep on doing it. Now, let's go around again. First, let's hear the lamb. Now you hold it. Now give me the lamb. Now keep going. Hedge cricket. All right, please. Breathe in. You'll just give us your attention here. We will try to duplicate the tremendous organization of sound in this poem. I will read the lines, and we will perform it together. All right?
Now don't be left behind.
Where are the songs of spring? Aye, where are they? Think not of them. Thou hast thy music too. While barred clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue. Then in a wailful choir the small gnats mourn, or sinking as the light wind lives or dies, and full-grown lambs, loud bleat and hilly born, hedge cricket sings, and now with treble soft the red breast whistles from the garden trough, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies.